Well, I thought I'd make a little movie when forging this knife and this knife, and these are kind of a new experiment I made, and my thought was to make him as thin as possible, because when making knives the most fun part is the forging, with no doubts. That's why I thought I would minimize all the other steps, so less grinding, more forging. And to do that, I needed to make the blade as thin as possible while forging. So I would try to make this. The grinding phase here should be as low as possible, as far away from the back as possible. I even thought I could make it like a S grind, which means it's thinner out here than it is here. But instead of an S grind, it will be like an S forge to make this part here a little bit thinner. That would, well, this kind of an S forge would enhance the food release properties of the knife. Well, I guess I'm kind of happy how it turns out. The hard part was to make it straight when it's this thin, and I can't correct it that much with the grinding. It's very hard to get it straight while forging it and quenching it. So you can see here I got this part where it was a little bit thicker, and I had to grind it out. So the grinding phase was moving up to the back of the knife. But otherwise, it looks pretty good, I think, and it cuts beautifully. I don't know if that's a word. Beautifully, beautifly, PewDiePie. It cuts very well. I also did this knife, and I will show you how I did both of them. It's the same principle, but it's a lot smaller. Well, enough of this introduction. Now let's heat that forge. So I started out with this mild steel, which I pre-made a scar into it, because it's easier to fold it over. Then I put 2 carbon steel 26C3 pieces in the middle of it. And the reason why I use 2 pieces is that I don't have as thick pieces as I needed to get the right proportions, because the mild steel was quite thick. And to make the forge well, it needs to be clean, so I just scrape off all the scales, which is forming while oxidating. I actually put it into the forge once again here. So here it's out again. I take off the scales, and then I put the carbon steel pieces in the middle. It's quite hot there. And then I try to make this sandwich, and this is not the forging, it's just to put it together so it will stuck and not move while I heat it up to forge welding temperatures. So I put some flux on it. And first I'll make just light blows with the handheld hammer. In here you can see the flux is going all over the workshop. It's quite hot. So you see I moved over to my power hammer. So here we start with the handle part. This will become two knives at this part, so I will split them in the middle, but I start with the handle for one of the knives. So this is a lot of material and it will be enough for two knives. Just to draw it out, I use this rounded piece for my power hammer instead. It's a lot faster. And here you can see I am thinning it out and it will be longer and longer. So here I go out and I will cut it. Because as I said, it would be two knives. It's enough material for those. So that's the smaller one. And the other one will become the bigger one. So let's start with the smaller one, and now we'll go to the other power hammer where I've got a more rounded hammer head, and I am focusing on thinning it out at the part most close to the edge. And here I'm just fixing the profile a little bit better, because it's too thin to make it with the hammer. It's just folding over, and I don't want it to fold because this is a San Mai, so I need to put the carbon steel in the middle. It's not supposed to be moving to one or the other side. And this is why I use the handheld hammer here, because it's too thin to use the power hammer. It's much easier with the handheld hammer. And I will thin it out even more and make this forge I was talking about. So I'm focusing on the middle of the blade, as you can see, to make it thinner at that part, so I won't have to grind that much. Then I go over to the belt grinder and I will fix the profiles. And then I will put my maker's mark on it. This is actually mild steel in the outer layer, so I could do it cold, but I usually do it hot anyway. And then the bigger knives, it's the same procedure, and I won't take you through all of it again, but you can see it's exactly the same procedure. Here I am at the power hammer where I have a rounded hammer head on, and just trying to thin the middle part of the blade out. And then to the grinder, belt grinder, to make the profile. And then the forging is actually done, so now we'll just heat treat it. I will heat it up a few times and let it cool, and every time I heat it up, it's with a lower temperature, and then I will let it air cool. So here's the big boy, and here comes the smaller one. So quite a difference. And now it's the heat treating. I will take it up to 800 degrees Celsius, and then I will cool it off in this quenching oil to get this very fast quench. And this is the moment of truth, of course. You will see if there is any delaminations or if it will warp law. And as I told you in the beginning, I had a little bit of a problem with the big one. It got a little bit of a warp and a thicker part, which I had to grind off later, and that's why I didn't get that nice uniform look at the bevel grind. Then I will go to the sharpening, and I do this at my water-cooled sharpening belt grinder. And as you can see here, I'm trying to keep it as low as possible, and it's because the blade is so thin, I can do that. And this is something I do sometimes, which is the stone finish on the sides. I actually didn't go all the way through at this. I just took it down so there were no obviously low spots. So if the buyer wants to stone polish it, it's very easy to do so. And this is the big boy, the same procedure with this one. Just try to keep this face as low as possible. And then I need to put a handle on it, and as you know, you really should do the handling while it's a full moon. I'm not pointing at the moon, but I try to point at the full moon. And luckily, it was full moon this night, so the fit was actually really good. As you can see, I am burning the handle in. This is an oak handle, and then it will fit perfectly. Then I'll go over to the belt grinder to fix the handle, and I'm very fond of these basic handles with octagonal shapes. I do really much like them. No fuss. And here they are, and I am, as I told you before, very pleased. They got a few things that I would do different when I'm doing them again, and I sure will try to do the same model again. But it's thin, it's light, and it's fun to use. You can see here it's easy to use even if it's very big. It's abnormally big actually, but it's easy to use. Well, that was about all I had to show you for this time. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.